أغنى الله أوقاتكم بالمهارات والتعليم وجعل كل فائدة ومتعة. مساء الخير وأهلا وسهلا فيكم بلقاء جديد على نيوفيرستي تي في. نحن مثل العادة موجودين معكم بشكل حي ومباشر على صفحة نيوفيرستي على الفيسبوك وعلى قناة نيوفيرستي على اليوتيوب. يسعد مساكم وأهلا وسهلا بكل اللي حاضرين. نحن بتعرفوا اليوم في عنا ضيفة ورح يكون لقائنا باللغة الإنجليزية. ضيفتي هي اسمها جيسيكا شمايز، وتشتغل بشركة الفيسبوك حاليا، وقبل الفيسبوك كانت تشتغل بجوجل، وما بينهما أيضا اشتغلت على رسالة الدكتوراه تبعها بمجال التسويق الإلكتروني. أنا تعرفت عليها بعام 2017 وهي كانت من أوائل الأشخاص اللي عرفوني ببدايات اليونيفرسيتي على فكرة البراندينج والأونلاين ماركتينج أو التسويق الإلكتروني وكيف بيصيروا. وحبيتنا اليوم نستضيفها لنتعرف من خلالها على خبرتها بمجال العمل بشركات كبيرة مثل جوجل وفيسبوك، وخبرتها في مجال التسويق، وأيضا لسؤالها عن شو رأيها أهم المهارات اللي مطلوبة اليوم للناس تقدر تشتغل، وخاصة يمكن عم تلاحظوا إنه المهارات عم يصير تطور بسبب الكوفيد 19، عم يصير في تطور كتير كبير بنوعية المهارات المطلوبة للعمل، وأيضا ثقافة العمل عن بعد أصبحت يعني موجودة وبقوة في تقريبا في كل مكان. اسمحوا لي رحب بصديقتنا العزيزة جيسيكا. Jessica, good evening and thank you very much for your time and for being with us at University TV. You're so welcome.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Let me just tell our audience فيكم إذا في عندكم أسئلة باللغة العربية لجيسيكا فيكم تكتبوها بالتعليقات وأنا بترجم لها باللغة الإنجليزية. طبعا في حال إنه حبيتوا تكتبوها باللغة الإنجليزية أكيد طبعا ما في مشكلة على الإطلاق. فيكم تسألوا أسئلة دائما ضمن التعليقات. Okay, Jessica, let me just start this interview. I'm really excited about it. We've talked about it a really long time ago. I just told our audience how we met in 2017 and how we were like maybe one of the first people who introduced me to the concept of branding and the concept of digital marketing at the really very beginnings of university. May I ask you just to introduce yourself a little bit to our audience?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Jessica. I'm really excited to be here, and it's so great to actually be in this format. Well, you know, Fadi probably told all of you, we met like in the very early stages of university. So I'm so excited to actually be in this broadcast today and see how it's grown. I live in Berlin. And I currently work at Facebook in a team called Strategic Community Partnerships that works with large community leaders all around Germany to help them sort of grow their communities. And before that, I did a PhD, which is also the time that I met Fadi, because I did a bunch of volunteer work during that time for social impact startups in Berlin. And my PhD was on how digital business models emerge on different platforms, for example, Facebook or other platforms. So it was a really interesting time to sort of go really deep into this academic world and now come back to, you know, work at Facebook. Prior to that, I had worked at Google for about 4 years in marketing, which is where sort of all of my branding and online marketing thinking came from that I shared with Fadi. And aside from that, I mean, I've lived in Berlin for the last 4.5 years. I've grown to really love it. It's become my home, and because of many things. And in my free time, I am also a meditation and yoga teacher. So I've organized retreats and events sort of all around the world, bringing the community in that space together. And yeah, that's me.
Well, now I know something new about you, which is you are a yoga teacher and you do all these retreats thing. Well, this is interesting, and I will ask you a little bit about them later in our discussion. But really, Jessica, to have, I mean, you, I mean, you have done 3 things already that are let's say graded or looked at as really great achievements at a very, very young age. You worked at Google, this giant company, and then you decided to do your PhD to go into the academics. And I'm interested in know why. And then after finishing this, you went to Facebook, another giant company. So congratulations on these 3 big achievements at a very early age or stage in your professional career. Can we go back a little bit to Google and know how did you find your way to Google?
So I think I have always been super interested in technology, and that is really, I think, why I got into that space in the first place. I mean, I love to tell the story about how our household was the first one to have internet in like the late 90s when I was still in elementary school, because my dad is like a tech enthusiast. So he had internet with this modem style when I was still in elementary school, and my friends would come over and we'd sit in front of the computer and there was nothing to see on the internet because it was like the very early days of the internet. So there was nothing. So I think from that time, I'd always been super interested in technology and what it does and how it changes how we do our lives. And in Google, I really got interested during my master's studies. So I did a master's degree in international management, and I had sort of looked at potential internships during that master's program. At Google at the time had an internship program. So I applied for that. Luckily got in, and then sort of spent 4 months there in the German marketing team at the time in Hamburg. And really liked it a lot because it was, like a very special culture. You got to work on like very interesting things, and went back to finish my master's degree. And after my master's degree, I did join Google back then in Dublin, which is sort of their European headquarter where a lot of the newly graduated people come. And that was really a super special time as well, because you join right out of university, right? And it feels like you're coming to Dublin. There's all these people from all over Europe speaking all these different languages, and it's like a really tight-knit community. And actually, still today, some of my closest friends are some of the people, literally, like one of my closest friends was someone I met on the first day at Google. So he was sitting next to me at lunch. It's like, so it's a very sort of culture, like really nice social and culturally interesting experience as well. And then after a while, I moved from Dublin to Hamburg back into the German team, and spent sort of 4 years there working on different programs and marketing initiatives for the German team.
And as a like, let's say a fresh graduate working at Google, how does that thing feel to you? How did it feel?
It felt, to be honest, it felt super overwhelming at first, because you come in and it's this crazy, and especially in Dublin, right? It's this very strange feeling of coming into this super tight-knit community of, like Europeans from all over Europe, like very young people. And it's this like very social environment. And then at the same time, you come into this, very, very fast-paced, super exciting environment where everything moves so quickly. Like you would, leave work one night, and then the next day you come in and your job has like changed 180 degrees because of something happened and there's a new project you're working on. So that's that. It was, I would, if I had to describe it in 2 words, I think it was like exciting, and at times, it would really stretch my comfort zone. But that's sort of what I always really liked. I always like to work sort of on the edge of the comfort zone.
And usually, people who are outside Google, we always read about Google, we hear about Google, and we always see that people who are working at Google, they are the Googlies. They are special. Did you feel that thing at Google? Was it really that place that we, the outsiders, hear about and know about?
So one part I do really agree that the thing that makes it really special are the people. Like they have a sort of a way to bring together a crowd of super interesting and exciting individuals, and that's really what makes makes working there very special. And as I said, still today, a lot of my friends I know from that time, and I'm still connected with a lot of people who've now moved into very different areas, right? Like a few of them still work at Google, but lots of them, they went into different career paths, they've done different things. So yeah, absolutely. I feel like the special thing about it is really the people.
And for you to be at Google and maybe see yourself just going up the ladder of the promotions in this such a company, which is a dream for many people to work at, why then did you decide to leave and focus on something academic?
So I think there's two parts to that answer. One is really, I had always wanted to go into academia. I'd always wanted to do a PhD. I considered it after my master's degree, but felt a little bit like I kind of wanted to get some experience first. I wanted to get out there and see what it's like to work, in the world. So that's why I didn't do it after my master's degree. And then at some point sort of always came back to that thought, like, I always really wanted to do a PhD. I really wanted to sort of have that time to really dig really deep into one subject and understand something at a really, really detailed level. And that thought kept sort of coming back. And at some point then I realized also, when you sort of come into a company like this, I was 25 at the time, I was straight off college, it was an amazing time, I had a really good time, but you also realize that there is a whole world out there that you know nothing about. And I sort of felt like I wanted to go out and see what else is there, because I knew that I was in this microcosmos, which was amazing, of amazing people, amazing projects, like really, really cool environment. But I always sort of had the feeling that there is something else out there that I really want to see. And that's why then eventually I made the decision to move to Berlin and start the PhD.
Interesting. Nowadays there is this dialogue. Actually, it's kind of like increasing importance of the skills, and even Google themselves, they announced, I think, a couple of weeks ago about something new called Google Career Certificates, and it's a certificate that people study for 6 months. And the head of HR, I think, of Google said that we will look at these 6-month degrees as a 4-year academic degree. And I think one was in data analysis and or data mining. The other was project management. And the Trump administration also took a decision last June for the employment at the federal states to focus on skills rather than the degrees. And I think you are now, you have this unique combination of both. How do you look at this dialogue that is happening around the world these days?
I think it's actually very true, because I would say a lot of what I know, I learned sort of on the go, like on the work. Obviously, I had a good education. I had, did my master's program. But when I came in to my first job, I realized, like, wow, there is a lot of stuff that you learn sort of on the go, right? And there's a lot of stuff around how do I organize my own work? How do I collaborate in teams? How do I work in global teams? How do I communicate? How do I manage people? Like, there's all this like more experience-based skills, I feel, that you can't really learn in university. And at the same time, though, having done a PhD, what I always say, sort of the thing that I got out of my PhD and the 4 years that I spent on it, is you really learn to think in a different way. Like, it teaches your brain to think in a very, very pragmatic and analytical way, and sort of understand things in a very different way than you would when you sort of don't have that education. So I really view it, I agree in many points and many parts, but I think there should be a balance, right? And I think the question also going forward, for any education programs is, how can you combine those two, and how can you make any education and any program more experience-based? because I feel that's how we really learn, right? Is through experience. And I think that's maybe where a lot of the discussion is coming from. Because when I remember when I started my bachelor's degree, every student knows that, there are these exams where you just have to memorize like scripts, and then they will ask you questions and you have to give the answer that was in the script. That teaches you something, of course, but it would teach you a lot more if you had it experienced in some way, right? And you really internalize what is happening. So that I think is my little rambly answer to that question.
Which makes it a little bit more difficult to the people. I mean, to find always the right combination between the skills or the learning, the know-how, or learning by doing, and also the academic education. Yeah, I also, share with you that maybe the future, which is now, we're no longer talking about future, which is so far. The competition is becoming very, very high. So even like when it comes to skills, you need to be really skilled, or maybe have two skills together when it's backed also with maybe academic degree, it might be even better. But I'm usually asked this question by people who were at your stage sometime, like they finished their master degree sometime before, and now they have worked a little bit, and now they have the choice to go to a PhD program or to go to the labor market and have more skills. And I find always this question difficult. But let's say if I pass on this question to you, what would be your advice?
My advice would be, do it if you can work on something that you are really interested in and that you're passionate about. Because I'm not gonna lie, like doing a PhD can be super intense, and you will have phases where it's not nice, and I had phases where I'm like, I'm just gonna be done with this, I'm not gonna finish this, I'm done. So it really is a process, and I think I wouldn't miss this time for the world, because also it's sort of two things, right? For me, it created a lot more freedom to explore so many different things and go into different areas and really sort of expand my horizon. That's how I would describe it, right? It gave me the freedom to really explore and expand my horizon and gather skills in a different way, right? Because I was working on this academic subject, and then at the same time, I was always trying to find new things and like work on different projects and sort of expand my horizon in different ways. So it's that, but it was also because I was really, really interested in what I was working on, and I had a great supervisor who really supported me and gave me a lot of freedom to sort of come up with my own topic out of like my own passion and my own interests. So I feel like, if you have something that you are really interested in, that you really want to look at and try and solve, absolutely go for it. And, it doesn't have to be the sort of very traditional, straightforward, you go in for 4 years, you do this program and you only do academia. There are so many different ways to do a PhD, like nowadays. So, I always encourage people to really think about what is it that they are really interested in. Could they imagine working on it for 4 years? Because if you're in the labor market, like you're never going to work on the same project for 4 years. That just doesn't happen, right? So a PhD is a much more long-term commitment. And I have to say, like halfway through, I was like, oh boy, what did I sign up for? I'm not even half done. So, that is sort of my advice, right? Is there something that you're really passionate about? And how can you find the best setup for you? Like really make sure that you think about what is it that you want to get out of? What skills do you want to learn? What are you interested in? And then try and find the right setup for you. And then go in it with the knowledge that it's not a short-term commitment. It's like, it will be at least 3 years until you're done. So that's sort of my thinking on it.
Thank you for the nice advice. Let me just finish this topic by a last question on this thing. From what you have done in your during your PhD or on your PhD, was that useful in your career? Was it taken into consideration by your employer and by you? Did it help you at any level?
Yeah, it did. obviously, I mean, sort of, I went back into like a new role now, but what I can see like in my day-to-day work, that I now have skills that come out of my PhD. Like there's ways of thinking about things, there's ways of sort of structuring things, designing things that I wouldn't have if I hadn't done that PhD, right? So it really does, you know, it's a different set of experience that you have, right? I mean, if I had stayed in my old job for another 4 years, I would be a different person today, right? I would have made very different experiences, also personally very different experiences, right? And I think that does reflect sort of in you know, where I am now and what career I work in now. And yeah, absolutely, I feel like that was taken into account.
Then can you build the bridge for us now and take us from your academic study to Facebook?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was thinking about for quite a long time, sort of, you know, knew that I was coming towards the end of my PhD, and I was like, wow, like, what is the next step for me? Like, what do I want to do? And towards the end of my PhD, I really, really became interested in how technology can impact society and how it shapes the way society works and how people communicate and how people work. And I took quite a while to like explore different options and different things. And to be honest, like I always came back to, you know, if I really want to work somewhere that has a lot of impact, I have to go to one of the big companies like Facebook, right? Because this is where the big platform is, and this is where, you know, so many people come together. And if something happens on there, it really has an impact, right? So that sort of was my first thinking, was like, okay, what type of company do I want to work at, right? So I had sort of, you know, in my mind, sort of, okay, I do want to go back to a big tech company. And then sort of the next step was to understand, okay, how can I find a job in this type of company that allows me to work on that, right? To work on how does technology impact society and the way we live and the way we communicate and the way we sort of work together. And this is sort of then how I came to be in this job that I am now, which is, you know, by the way, quite a big career change from my typical sort of marketing trajectory that I was on before my PhD. Right. So I was working in the German marketing team, running marketing campaigns. So, you know, it was like a more classical work. And today I work in the partnerships organization. So my job is to work with around like a number of community leaders in Germany to really help them build their communities using the technology that we have at Facebook to really help them grow that and make an impact in the life of their members. And so that's sort of where all of this sort of started coming together, and I'm really happy that it did, and really enjoy working with these people and helping them sort of further their causes.
And was it easy to? I mean, did you want to go to Facebook, or you wanted? I mean, you had this job description in your mind, and then it was Facebook, or it was Facebook, and then you went there.
No, it was more. I had the job description in mind. And then I went out and started looking, okay, which companies will provide me the platform to do that, right? Okay. So, and then Facebook was like, you know, one of the first things that came up, and because obviously, you know, it is a huge network of people coming together, and if you can make an impact there, it will really, you know, impact how we live and how we change things. So yeah, that's sort of how my way around it. It wasn't sort of, oh, I want to work at Facebook. What do I do? It was, what do I really want to do? And what is the company where I can find that? And this is then how I found sort of this match. And that is, by the way, something I would always recommend, right? Like really think about, what is it that you want to do? Like, what is it that, you know, really drives you and makes you passionate? And then try and find which companies fit that, right? Like which company fits like what I want to do and what I'm, you know, what I'm passionate about. Because I feel like that is a much more sustainable way of working.
Okay. Let me just talk to our audience for a little bit. برجع برحب فيكم، أهلا وسهلا فيكم من وين ما عم تحضرونا. نحن إذا في حدا عنده أي سؤال فيه يطرح أسئلته عن طريق التعليقات في صفحة الفيسبوك أو على اليوتيوب باللغة العربية أو باللغة الإنجليزية. Okay, Jessica, then my next question is concerning now the comparison between these two giants. I mean, you've worked with Google and now you're working with Facebook. Can you tell us a little bit about the culture of these two companies?
So I feel like the first thing that always comes to mind is really what I've said earlier about the people, right? I think that is really something that is super unique to both Google and Facebook, is their way of bringing together people who are really like have incredible stories, know really cool things, and who are very diverse as well. So I feel like it's a very inclusive work environment as well, you know, where you can really come and be yourself. Like, I don't have to hide any part of me that I am. I just come to work and I just share it with everyone. So I think that is something very unique to both culturally, to both companies. I think, you know, another thing is around being super like flexible and, you know, always being on the edge, and people always wanting to solve things, right? I mean, at Facebook, we always say, you know, there's nothing, you know, that is not my problem. So, you know, people are really, really passionate about what they do and about making a change. And that I feel like is very unique, and that makes it a lot of fun to be in that environment, because you're always with people who, there's never a yes, but there's always a yes, and let's do that too. You know, it has a very sort of, it has a very forward-thinking, mindset in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Since you worked also in both companies, how do you see the future of these two companies, especially now they are one of the top, let's say, 5 companies in the world? Do you think that they will keep their role or place for a long time, or things you think will change a little bit?
Honestly, if I had a wisdom ball, I would tell you. I mean, I really don't know, right? I think what is very unique about not only Google and Facebook, right, about any of the big companies, is that they have built something that wasn't there 10 years ago. That just wasn't there. So I think it's very hard to tell, right? Because they developed it. Like, it's such a new way of working also in the culture of the company. That I think there are super exciting things happening in both companies, you know, and what they do and what their vision is. And I think both, and also any of the big companies, really are driven by a vision that extends beyond, you know, the next 5 years. So I think there is really a vision and a passion to change something for the long term. So I really do think there is like really exciting things to come, and what they really are. Who knows? We didn't know 10 years ago, you know, that I would be sitting here in this live stream, looking at my laptop with my camera and then having my phone and, you know, like all these things. We just didn't know that 10 years ago. So I think it's really hard to tell. And I think I think it's just exciting to see, right? And I think we sometimes, isn't there a saying that you overestimate what you can do in 3 years' time, and you underestimate what's going to happen in 10 years' time? And I think that perfectly describes the trajectory of those companies, right? I think there are many things that we just today can't imagine what it's going to be like in 10 years.
Interesting. I would like to thank our audience for their interaction and their question, and for their also nice and kind words. Thank you very much. Actually, before I continue, there are a couple of questions that I've received actually just come now in the right time. And I think both of them are in English, so I put that in on the screen. So do you have any tips or steps when searching for a suitable company? Did you have any other option in mind other than Facebook?
Yeah. Yes, I did have other options in mind. As I said, sort of, I knew what I wanted to do. And then I started looking for, okay, which companies offer that type of job? You know, I knew I sort of wanted to work in this impact-driven community space. So I was looking for, okay, which companies actually have these job descriptions? And I mean, one of the super easy things you can do is literally go on LinkedIn, type in the keywords that you're interested in and see what comes up, what type of people come up, and what companies do they work for, and what type of job do they have. Because I think sometimes it's from the outside really hard to tell by the job description what you actually do as a job. So that is really my advice, right? Like go to, you know, like any of the big platforms, LinkedIn, any of the big job search platforms, and just have a look, like type in some of the keywords that you're interested in. For me, for example, it was around community impact technology. Like, if I had to put that into a job description, really hard to tell, right? What is that going to be? But then when I actually started, you know, looking mostly, you know, on like the networks that I had, I was like, oh, interesting. There are people who work on this. And then, you know, it's sort of a snowball system. And then typically, eventually, if we live in a connected world, you will end up with someone who knows someone that you can introduce you to someone who does that job. Right? So really try and talk to a lot of people to understand what do they do, and is that something that you're also passionate about? That is something my advice.
We have also a question from Ahmed: is how can I join Facebook as an engineer? Do you have any or advice?
I mean, there are a lot of options, and I feel like depending on Ahmed where you're based as well, I think the best way really is to go on the website and see also what is your unique skills, right? Are you good in like something very particular? What are you focused on as an engineer? And really have a look for the job postings that are out there, and apply and make sure, you know, that you sort of tell your story and what you're good at and why you want to join this company. And I feel like, you know, the more personal and authentic you are, the more it will help you as well in the application process.
All right. Another question by Muhammad: what are the opportunities for students that Facebook allow or where they can apply?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Facebook has internship programs like any other company, you know, typically do. So also those you can find on the website, and there are different programs depending on your sort of background, on what you studied, on what you want to do, on where you are in your studies. There are different options to do. And I think, you know, talking from personal experience, it's actually a really, really great way to find out if the company is a good fit for you, right? I was an intern. Like my first interaction with Google was as an intern. And I did the same. I applied. I sort of, you know, knew I wanted to try out this tech world. So I knew, okay, there aren't that many companies. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try Google. I applied for the internship program, got in, and then sort of I joined as a full-time employee after my studies. So I think it's a really great way to get a sense of what you want to do. And the internship programs, they are really, really great. So I really recommend checking them out on the website, seeing, you know, what would you be interested in, what areas, and see if they have a program that fits you.
Mm-hmm. I have also an interesting question from Maram. Hello, Maram. Mm-hmm. What is the long-term plan for Facebook, or in other words, after coronavirus, regarding technology and digitalization?
Yeah. I mean, this is a really interesting question, right? And I talk a lot about this with my friends as well, because I feel like COVID or Corona made things possible that should have been possible 2 years ago, but nobody wanted to do them, right? I mean, I can tell you as well from my personal experience, I onboarded to Facebook, to my new job, at the beginning of the pandemic. So I've actually never been to a Facebook office. I started fully remotely, and that's how I still work. I work fully remotely with my team, and it works. I mean, it requires a little bit of adapting and a little bit of a change of mind. And, you know, it is different in many ways, and it's not always easy, but it's possible, and it is actually working out quite well. So I think again, here, I think we are going to see, I personally believe the way that we work will have changed forever after this. And I believe we're going to see a lot of technology to actually enable people to collaborate remotely in a much better way, because it can't be the solution that you sit in, a video call for 8 hours a day. That just can't be the solution, right? So I think there is a lot coming around also in terms of technology, like how do people connect in a remote setting? How do we bring people together? How do we allow people to interact and communicate and collaborate and brainstorm and be creative together? And I think that is just the beginning, right? And I think the pandemic has fueled that. And I think it gave a lot of those digitalization topics a big push that was probably necessary, because otherwise it wouldn't have happened. I don't know. Fadi, are you still there? Yeah, that's generally my answer to that. I think there's also knowing what you know. Oh, when I started my career journey, thank you, Iyad, for the question. I would tell myself 2 things. First of all, sleep fixes everything. Like literally, Fadi and I, we were talking about this before we jumped on the call. Like, I had so many moments in my early career as well where I was working a lot and I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't feeling well. So really, sleep fixes everything. Make sure you're healthy, make sure like you feel good, and then things will develop in a much easier and more natural way. That's sort of the first thing, which I guess goes in hand a little bit with take it easy, and make sure that you sort of take care of yourself. I think that is really one of the most important things. And then the other thing is what actually my yoga teacher always used to say is trust the process. Sometimes you don't really know how things are going to work out. I mean, I'm going to be honest, it was a huge step for me back then to quit my job at Google and move to Berlin, do a PhD. That was a huge step for me. And I had made the decision without realizing how big the step actually was for me also, as a person. And it took me quite a while to get used to that, to like find myself into that new space. And I think I didn't really know how things were going to work out, right? And I think that's another thing. Like sometimes you're going to have to be okay with a little bit of uncertainty for a while, and not get freaked out by the uncertainty, but just trust the process and know that it's going to work out somehow eventually, even if you don't know how yet. And I think it's keeping that positive mindset, right? Of being okay with living in a certain uncertainty for a while, and not really knowing where to go, and just knowing that within that space of uncertainty, something new will come up.
Sorry, I don't know what, I was disconnected for a couple of seconds. Iyad is now talking to us from San Francisco, and he is one of the, I think, the first people I hosted at University TV.
Yay.
Best regards to Iyad.
Hi, Iyad.
And Iyad, obviously, he already commented on what you have said already. So sleep fixes everything. Trust the process. Love it. Thank you. Actually, I love the trust the process thing. Sometimes when I am in bad, let's say, or I think things are going bad, this sentence helps me a lot. Let's trust the process.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a question by Rina. It's about the job interview. Rina, I will ask Jessica towards the end of our interview about this when I ask her a little bit about the skills. There is another question by Ahmed. I just put it on the screen. What are the existing partnerships with the Arab communities and organizations? Are there any plans to establish new partnerships in the Arab communities?
Yeah, that is a really great question. Thank you, Ahmed, for asking that. So I work in the EMEA team. So EMEA is sort of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And we actually,
Africa.
yeah, and we actually do have 2 people on the team who cover specifically the Middle East. So they work with a lot of the Arab community in Egypt and some of the other countries. So I'm sorry, I can't, because I'm not I don't have the full list and process, but we do work with a lot of really amazing communities in that area. And they do a lot of really, really amazing things. So if you go on, there's a website called facebook.com/community. And if you click through that a little bit, you will see some examples of the people that we work with also in that community. And I think it's fascinating to see that. And also here in Germany, we run something called the Facebook Accelerator, which is sort of the Facebook Community Accelerator, which is a global program. And we have 4 people sort of from Germany who work in that, who are part of that program. And one of them is a partner of mine who works with a refugee community here in Germany to help them sort of build skills for their job entry, so to say. So we work with him and the community here as well to sort of help them build that community, and they do really amazing work. So, I mean, we're always looking to expand. So if anyone knows any great communities, send them my way, because we're always looking for new amazing people to work with, and for new stories, and to hear what people are passionate about.
Well, this is very interesting because, I mean, at university by itself, we have a community of around 25,000 people, and they are all very passionate about learning and developing their skills. And this is like, let's say, the university community. There is a question in Arabic by, I don't know how to actually pronounce this name. I don't know. But anyway, the question, Jessica, is this guy or this lady, I don't know, has an idea to tell Google. But he's asking, how can he or she approach Google? How can they tell Google that I have an idea?
I mean, it depends a little bit on what the idea is about, right? There are, and also where you are based. I don't know if, for example, you are based here in Germany, there is a bunch of programs that are run also by Google, where you can go and sort of be part of it. I know they run accelerator type programs. They have different initiatives where, they get in touch with students. So there are sort of different ways. And I would encourage you, depending on where you're based, to have a look at sort of what local initiatives does the company do, right? Do they offer any trainings? Do they offer any events? Do they offer any programs for students? I know there's coding initiatives, I think, that they still run. So I'm sorry, I'm not super familiar with all of the programs that they still run, but I know that they do a lot of regional specific programs, and that is always a great way to get in touch and sort of see, how you can plug in and how you can tell your story and your idea.
All right, thank you very much, Jessica. Now, I think this was, thank you for your interaction. They were very nice questions, and they come in the right time. Now, let me, Jessica, move to maybe a very important issue that is in the minds of all the, not only young people, but let's say the people of the current time, especially this great 2020 that we're living in. According to your experience as someone who has worked at Google and who has a PhD in marketing and is currently working at Facebook, and I did not know this information. I find it really fascinating and interesting that you've never been to a Facebook office. I mean, this is really interesting information. But according to all these experiences that you have, what is your advice to the people? Or let's say, not the advice, sorry. What do you think are the skills that will be asked for by the labor market in the next, let's say, coming 5 years, so people can learn them, so they can ensure kind of a place in the labor market?
Yeah. That is a hard question, Fadi.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and give my best answer that I can think of. So what I really believe, and I touched on that earlier when we were talking about sort of what is coming after this pandemic in terms of technology, and digitalization. So I think what is going to be super crucial in terms of skills, and what I really already notice as well, is how do you communicate and how do you collaborate? So I think what is going to be more and more important is any skills around how do you interact, how do you build teams without actually having a team, how do you rally people for doing something with you, how do you build a movement, how do you build, like, how do you sort of get people together to do something, and how do you collaborate even in virtual settings, like how do you go across the world to find the people to help you with something you're passionate about. And I think that is going to become more and more important. And in addition to that, of course, yes, absolutely, if you're interested in, I don't know, microbiology, go study that. If you're interested in medicine, go study that. If you're interested in economics, study that. You know, there are so many, computer science, whatever, like whatever you feel you're interested in, go and study that. But then, you know, make sure that you have this experience-based learning as well, right? And this of interacting with people, because I think the days where, you know, there is a teacher in front of a classroom that tells you the truth and you believe it and you go outside and you tell it to other people, those times are over. I believe that, you know, learning is going to become a lot more interactive and a lot more collaborative. And I think that is really going to be the skill that is going to bring us forward for the future. And then, of course, having this specialized knowledge in different areas, that will never go away. I think it's about how do you use that knowledge and how do you use it to create things with other people. That's sort of my view. Did that answer the question?
Well, I know that this question is kind of difficult and wide, and it has a lot, but I appreciate your answer, and I think, yes, you've answered, and I like your focus on these kind of, I don't know whether we can still call them soft skills, but these skills that maybe cannot be automated, at least in the near future or in our lifetime.
Yeah. Let's say
communicating across.
Maybe I can give it another go. I think it's not going to be so much about what we learn anymore. It's going to be more about how we learn it and how we apply it. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes a lot of sense, yes. And yeah, because as you mentioned, I mean, these days, it's not the information, it's what you do with the information, because everyone who has any kind of device connected to the internet, I would say he or she can reach 95 to 98% of the information.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
and I think the people who will in the future are the people who can not only use this, I mean, apply it, but apply it in an innovative way. And I think here could be the competition, or it's already the competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I have an interesting question by Ahmed again. I don't know whether this is the same Ahmed, but I think it's the same because he has the same avatar. Yeah. I asked you actually this question before, Jessica, and Jessica is working on this. You know, we've been teaching the digital marketing skills from Google, and I approached Jessica and asked her whether we can also do the same for Facebook courses. Do you have any answer to this now?
Yeah, absolutely. They are, and they are called Blueprint. So if you Google for Facebook Blueprint, you will come to a website and you will find all sorts of different courses on different topics, some specific to Facebook marketing, some like other topics. So there's really a huge variety of courses out there, and I really encourage you to have a look. And also, there are going to be courses, which I'm super passionate about community management. So how to actually build community using the products that we have. Yeah.
Well, this is interesting. And I think maybe the question of Ahmed, because what we've done, we have translated everything in Arabic, I mean, as a university, and we taught them in Arabic. Is it possible also to cooperate and try to get this content and deliver it in Arabic to in the Arab world?
I actually, don't quote me, I think it may be available in Arabic. If not, let's talk.
All right. Great. I have another question by Iyad. Many young people, young women struggle with imposter syndrome. even more when they join highly competitive environments like Facebook. What's your take on that? Thank you,
yeah, that is a good question. So, I mean, I still have imposter syndrome every single day. And I think, okay, what's my take on that? I think everyone struggles of imposter syndrome in these days, even though they don't necessarily realize. And I think environments like Google, like Facebook, any other like fast-paced environment just amplifies that imposter syndrome. My take on it is, it's 50% of the problem is solved once you're aware that this is what's happening. And really, I mean, one thing I do love about Facebook, for example, is that we talk about it super openly, and everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows how it feels like. Everybody knows when it hits you. And that really, having that awareness and that consciousness of a situation where you feel like that, but then you realize, oh my God, okay, I'm having imposter syndrome, that already, like, for me, at least personally, solves 50% of the problem, because you're not like spiraling into it, but you just realize that this is what's happening. And then if you need to, you can address it with, the group or the person or the project, your manager, your peers, whoever. And that is my take on it. I feel like, let's be honest, it's never going to go away. I think there's no way we can resolve it. Also, because we live in this like super connected world where everything is available, where everyone is on Instagram, on YouTube, on whatever, and you can constantly sort of, peek into each other's lives. How can you not have imposter syndrome, right? So I think, that is like the main thing. I think my take is we need to have many more very open conversations around it and help people realize how it feels like and what happens and what they can do when it happens. And that's sort of my take on it. But it's a really, really important question, because literally I have it every day, like still do. And I think everyone else I know also does. And, being open about it, I think helps a lot.
Can you help me with what does this word mean in Arabic? I mean, I cannot recall the Arabic term for imposter syndrome. If you know in Arabic, please just put it in the comments. So if people need to know what we mean exactly by this. So here's a comment by Wisal. I like your personality and thank you for the tips about PhD and LinkedIn. They gave me some to think about. Thank you, Wisal.
Thank you.
Okay. Another question. I have a question based on my interest in helping disabled people. If I have an idea to help them, can I achieve that by Facebook and your help?
I mean, literally you can, like, usually there is some way on Facebook to help you achieve what you do, because it's a great platform to connect people, right? And to sort of bring people together around a common cause. And I mean, I can tell you from my own experience and my own work, especially with Facebook groups, we have a lot of groups that focus on, for example, disabled people. I know we work with a really great community in Brazil that works with deaf people who, can't hear, and, the community leader herself also cannot hear. So she's developed this whole community and this whole curriculum of teaching people how to sort of navigate life like that. And there's many other examples like that, where people connect through a common cause. And I think that is sort of the key thing, right? If there's a way to help, I think, if you want to use Facebook for that, I think a great way is, bringing people together to help each other. And that is what most of our products are made for, right? To bring people together and to create a community and to help each other through that. So if that's your plan, go for it. Absolutely.
All right. There's another question. According to your talk about soft skills, is it why Google removed the bachelor degree from the qualifications of any future employees? And in this, what are the criteria for any applicant? I don't know whether Google did this. Are you aware of this, Jessica?
I'm not, unfortunately. So I don't know if I can answer that, because I'm not aware if they might have. I actually don't know. Yeah, so sorry, I can't actually comment on that.
Okay. All right. Let's go back again to the skills. When it comes to the skills to work in, let's say, giant companies like Google or Facebook or any other company, are there, let's say, special advice you can give people actually it's multi-layer question. Let's say if people don't have academic degrees or people have academic degrees, is there any difference in your advice, or do you have an advice for these or an advice for these, or it's the same thing? And if it's the same, what are the advice?
To apply to a company like that, or to work in a company like that?
To be prepared to apply.
To be how to prepare to apply. So that is a great question, and I think honestly, I can't really comment on the academic degree versus non-academic degree, because I know it really much depends on your experience, right? If you do not have an academic degree but have a lot of work experience, great. You know, if you're sort of a good fit for the job, then I think absolutely that is working. So my comments really apply to both, and I think there's sort of two things, right? I mean, as I said before, like have a think around what do you really want to do? You know, what are you really interested in? And then how does that's sort of always what I do, right? Like, what am I really interested in? What am I super passionate in? And then I go and have a look at, okay, what kind of job could this be? Like, what kind of job description? What kind of team? What do these teams do? And then, I mean, very specifically and honestly, have a look at the job descriptions, because especially companies like Facebook and Google, they tell you very, very specifically what they are looking for. And then check, like literally, I look at the list, I make a checklist. With any job that I looked at, I made a checklist to see if like, I have those skills or not. And then if you do, great, go ahead and apply. And then it's really, you know, up to you to you know, like make the best out of it. And you never know, you know, who else is going to be applying. But if you're really yourself, and if you come in and sort of honestly share who you are and why you're passionate about it, that gives you a great chance. And then, you know, going back to the checklist, if there's something that is missing on your checklist, I would check, okay, I'm missing this one skill. Am I interested in learning this skill? If yes, great. Go ahead, have a look. Where can you learn it? You know, can you do a course? Can you do this? Can you do that? What are the ways you can learn that skill? But then, honestly, a lot of times when I was looking for a job, they were asking for skills that I had no interest in learning. So I knew it was the wrong job for me, because they required something for me that I wasn't really interested in. So I think that is just sort of my general advice, right? Like very practical. Have a look at a bunch of job descriptions in the field that you're interested in, and have a look, what do they require? And then have a look at, okay, is there anything that I'm missing? And if yes, is that really something I want to learn? Or if there are maybe other job descriptions that already fit what I know, and that I can sort of apply to.
And do you think that now, after COVID-19, the market is still open and people have this luxury of looking at these jobs and choosing them?
I think it very much, that is a great question. And I think it very much depends on what area you want to work in. And maybe not. You're absolutely right. You know, I do hope at some point in the future we're going to be back in a situation where that is going to be possible. And if not, then again, you know, have a look at these job descriptions, see, you know, what skills do I already have and what skill am I missing? Where can I learn that skill, right? Where can I go and make sure that I have that skill to learn that skill? And a lot of jobs, you know, a lot of companies will also be open to taking people in who, you know, they always want you to grow, right? So I feel like a lot of times, if you really already check all the boxes and you're already sort of like up here, how are you going to grow further, right? So I think that's another good thing to know about these companies, that they always hire sort of for growth, and they try to put you in roles and jobs that allow you to learn something new and to develop further.
I have an interesting question here. How can we prove the soft skills like good communication and team leader or leadership?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I think, again, two parts of the story, right? I think one part is how can you include something in your resume, in your profile, in sort of your achievement, whatever, your achievements, your things that you do, that will prove that, right? So let's say, let me give you like a personal example. When I was applying for jobs, I obviously knew sort of I had my experience at Google, I had the PhD, but then on the side, what I did is I did a lot of trainings and workshops, specifically on design thinking and sort of empathic design. Like, how do you, user-centric design, empathic design, how do you work with that? And I really highlighted that in my CV, to say, hey, I learned that skill. I hosted like 40 plus workshops over those 4 years. So I know how to work with a crowd. I know how to communicate. I know how to sort of bring people together and have them do something creative together. And then on the other side, I highlighted sort of the skills that I learned during that design thinking phase that I went through, not phase, that's said the wrong way, during all the things I learned from that, from going deeply into these design thinking practices. And I highlighted like all the skills that I learned from, understanding consumer needs, understanding needs of people, understanding how to solve them, understanding how to analyze them, like all these different things. So I try to, again, through experience, build those skills and then put them, into the resume as well. And in my interviews as well, I gave a lot of examples from that time to help people understand how I had learned that. And by the way, the same applies, if you're a student, right? Have you done, I don't know, are you active in any of the clubs at your university? Have you maybe tutored other students? Like where sort of, where are you applying those skills? And I think that's what people are looking for, and that's what they want to highlight.
Great answer, Jessica. Thank you. I like this idea of, like you gave the example of design thinking, like based even more than the skills you had and the degree you had, you also learned something new. And maybe you chose that strategically, like design thinking was at that time and still like really getting important and people are interested in it. And I would just add to what Jessica said, like show it, don't tell it. Like you can show it with your actions, especially these days with all these digital tools that we have. We can record things, we can do things, and we can really prove that we have the communication skills. I have another question from Iyad. In your opinion, how to ensure that new technologies and products connect people and communities, not divide them? What are the set of responsibilities companies and users have on their shoulders to achieve that?
Yeah, that is a great question. And honestly, a question that I personally think about a lot. Because I agree, in many ways, we are so much more connected, but then at the same time, it can also be very, very lonely. And I think, and you said it like very clearly, right? Like who is responsible for that, right? I think there's two sides to it, right? On the one hand, companies are responsible for creating technology that actually allows people to connect in a different way. And I think we're at the beginning of this, right? And I think the pandemic fueled that. And there are a lot of things that are happening in that space. And I think it's going to be super interesting over the next year to see what's going to come out of that and who can create a solution. And then the other thing is on the user side, right? I think there's a lot of responsibility on me personally as well to know how to use the technology in a way that benefits me and how to use it in a way that makes me feel good. I mean, honestly, does it make me feel good if I sleep with my phone next to my pillow and the first thing I do when I wake up is look at Instagram stories? Probably not, right? So I think it's also, on ourselves to, while, we are working on hopefully creating more technologies that will sort of benefit us in the long term, how can I as a person make sure that I use technology in a way that benefits me? I mean, I'm going to give you another example. Obviously, probably you had that too, right? During the lockdown, there was like every other night I was invited to a Zoom birthday party and a Zoom this and a Zoom that and la la la. And I did that for a week. And then after a week, I was like, sorry, people, I can't. Like, I work full time. I am in video conferences most of the day. When I come home, I just don't want to look at any screen anymore. I want to read a book. I don't want to do anything. So I think that also meant, of course, that I had fewer opportunities to connect with people. But then, what I would do is I would call people on the phone without actually looking at a video or finding other ways to connect with people. And I think it's two sides to the coin, right?
Interesting. The questions of our audience are always coming, not ending. I will take the last question from the audience, and we will talk a little bit about your yoga thing.
Yeah, okay.
So how to make this compromise, this is from Bassam, how to make the compromise in your CV of being yourself, being genuine, and met the company aims at the same time?
Yeah, that is a good question.
Well, I'm happy today. We're asking all good questions.
I know, it's amazing. Thank you, everyone, for all your amazing questions. I'm so happy we can chat about all of this. So, okay, I'm going to say my answer is a little biased because of the experience I have made so far. Because, working in a company like Google and Facebook, you can, it's part of the deal to come in and be your genuine self. Like, that is part of the things. It's just what the culture is. I realize that it is different for maybe other companies or other spaces, other job sectors, things like that. So I think it comes to a point, right, where you need to ask yourself, how much are you willing to leave of your own personality and your own self to do that job? And for me personally, I'm not willing to leave myself at home, like part of myself at home when I go to work. I know other people are willing to do that. And I mean, I can tell you like an example. I think for a while during my PhD, I considered going into, maybe a more like political space for a while, right? To really think about how can we use technology in society, things like that, maybe work for a foundation or an NGO. And I tried a few projects in that space. And I realized after a year that this is not how I am, and this is not how I want to work. And that it makes me really unhappy to leave like half of myself at home. So that is generally, I think, my take on that. And having said that, it's maybe a little biased because I've mostly worked in environments where I could bring my genuine self, at any time. And particularly during the application process, right? I think it's very important to listen to your gut feeling and to make sure that you feel like you can do this and that you can sort of, work in the space that you are and be okay with the version of yourself that you have to be in that space. And that's my answer on that.
Interesting. Before we go to the yoga, there was a question by Rina, and I promised her it was about some tips you can give for the job interviews. What kind of advice do you give for job interviews?
Yeah. Great question. So what are the tips I can give? One, related to what I was just saying, try and be yourself. Try and be as natural as you can. I know you're going to be nervous. I'm super nervous before any job interview. So still try and be sort of as natural and as much yourself as you can. And honestly, I had 2 interviews when I was super nervous, and I was just like, I told the interviewer, and I was like, look, I am super nervous. Just like give me a second to breathe, and then I will answer your question. So I think trying to be as much as yourself as you can is one thing, and then the other thing is really prepare yourself and really think about going back to the job description, right? And usually the recruiter will also share with you in advance sort of the type of questions that they're going to ask, and then really think about like very specific examples that you can give that highlight, going back to the soft skills, the questions we had around that, right? Show, don't tell. I try and work with a lot of like very, very specific examples and stories that sort of highlight, how I would do things, how this happened and why I did that, and be very prepared for that. And what I always do, I literally prepare, like, I'm probably come over prepared. I prepare like a catalog of different stories and different instances of topics that I know might come up in the interview. So I go in very prepared, so I'm not super nervous, but I really like specifically think about what examples can I give? How can I frame these examples? And have a look at the STAR model. That's a really great framework to structure your answers, which is situation, task, action, and result. So it describes sort of the situation that happened, the task that you had to do, the action you took to do that task, and then the result that came out of that. And if you sort of have that structure in mind and have your answers like a little bit prepared and have like a good set of examples and stories that you can tell, that will make you a lot more comfortable in the interview, and that will give you like a great chance of actually answering what people will do. And also, don't be afraid when they keep poking you on answers, right? I mean, that is always what happens, right? They're just trying to find out more. And I think that's the like one important thing as well is, they're not trying to be mean. They're just trying to understand who you are and what you've done and what your experience is. So try and sort of, not be intimidated, but understand that they want to get, usually in a very short amount of time, they want to get as much information out of you as possible.
Well, that was very, very helpful, Jessica, and I think we cannot have enough from you, from your experiences. Hopefully, we can also plan for another deeper, let's say, discussion in the future. Now, let's. Thank you very much. Let's end this with this personal thing that really surprised me, because in addition to all what you have done, that is already very, very impressive. You're a yoga teacher and you're organizing yoga classes, and you said all over the world. How is this?
So, I think when I started doing yoga, basically when I joined Google back then, so almost 10 years ago. It's really helped me to find, that sounds very cliche. Sorry, I'm still going to say it, to find myself and to understand when and how I feel good, and what I need in order to feel good, and what my body needs and what my mental health needs. It's really helped me to stay centered and to realize, when do I cross a boundary? And I think that is an important thing, right? It creates a lot of awareness for your body, your mind, how you feel, how your emotions are. And that really helps me to understand how I can work and how I can sort of thrive in this environment. And how I got to sort of organize retreats is I did a yoga teacher training. That was actually around the time that we first met, Fadi. That was, I think, in the process of completing my yoga teacher training. And then afterwards, I sort of got involved with a community here in Berlin of different teachers and different people. And they run events all over the world. They run sort of retreats, meditation and yoga retreats all over the world. So for quite a while, I got involved with them and sort of helped organize all these retreats all around the world. And we would all go and sort of spend a week or two We've been to France, to Bali, because hey, any good yogi needs to go to Bali. So I went to Bali. I went to France, to Italy, to where else did we go? To Egypt. Just before the pandemic, we went to Egypt, which was fantastic. One of the most fascinating places I've ever been to. So to Mexico. I went to Mexico once. So yeah, I mean, that's how I sort of got involved in it. And honestly, I really got involved through the community and the people that I met, because there were a lot of people who were already, putting on all these events. And then I sort of got involved and started helping them organize them and helping organize little workshops on the side here in Berlin. And it's really been a really nice way to do that. And I have to say, I really miss it, because obviously due to the pandemic, that sort of stopped. And right now we're sort of trying to figure out how to do it. We did continue over Zoom with the community, but honestly, we know that, right? I can, praise the wonders of technology all I want, but it's not the same. So we're at the moment sort of trying to figure out how to replicate some of that at some point.
Just waiting for me to appear on the screen.
I can see it. You're a little fuzzy though, but you're there. Well, no, you're not. Well, anyway, I mean, I can ramble on about meditation if anyone wants to. But really, I want to thank you all for all your amazing questions. It's been
I'm here.
You're there. Okay, yay. I was just saying, I wanted to thank everyone for their amazing questions, because I really, really enjoyed talking to all of you, even though I can only see Fadi, but I know you're all there. So really, really good to be here and to talk to all of you. And I really cheer for you wherever you are, whatever you want to do. Know that I'm cheering for you, and trust the process. It'll bring you to where you need to go.
Thank you very much, Jessica. That was very, very enriching and rich, actually, talk. Thank you for all your thoughtful answers and all the insights you've provided us with. I think we've taken a lot with us from this interview. And personally, I'm so sorry. I think I had some problems with the internet today. I was cut off a couple of times, and I don't know, there was some technical issue with the camera or with the internet. I don't know. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for all your participations, interactions, questions that were very, very right and to the point. I enjoyed them so much. Thank you, Jessica, again, and wish to see you at University TV in the near future. All the best to all of you, and see you soon. Bye-bye.